I am so excited to welcome onto the First Time Facilitator podcast, Kevin M. Yates. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today.
And thank you for inviting me. I am really excited to be here.
I'm so excited. And it's been, it wasn't really a matter of when we'd talk. Oh, sorry, of if we'd talk. It was a matter of when. I've been following your content, see you on LinkedIn, got a mutual
Wow.
friend, Andy Storch, and I just love
Yeah.
what you do. But I'll let you share that with listeners. Can you explain like what you do and sort of the pivots that enabled you to do the work that you do today?
Yeah, that's a great question to kick off with, right? So I'm going to try to describe what I do in layman terms, like in the easiest terms. So the essence of what I do is use analytics and data and facts and evidence to show whether or not after training, after learning, there's a change in behavior, a change in actions, a change in performance, and then how that change in actions, behavior, or performance actually influences or changes a business goal. So I'm all about taking a look at answering the question, what is the impact of training and learning? Or as I am starting to say more often now, has training and learning fulfilled its purpose, right? Because the terminology or the word impact is really getting to a point where it's being tossed about. And it's really getting to a point where it's kind of like a buzzword when people say, I want to measure the impact of training, or what's the impact of training? So I kind of restate that to say what I do is measure fulfillment of purpose, right? And if we're clear about the fulfillment of purpose, if we have a very clear roadmap for intention, for specificity, for the targets that training and learning have, then we can measure that. So we can measure the extent to which training or learning has fulfilled its purpose. So I'm looking at ways in which we can produce facts, evidence, and data to show purpose fulfilled. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it's probably the number one question that kind of stumps myself and previous guests that have been on the show is how do we ensure that the learning has actually happened? I mean, that's why you do this, right? Because there's so much demand for what you do. I mean, you call yourself the L&D Detective. Love that
Yeah,
phrase, by
yeah.
the way.
Well, it stumps me too. I want to be very transparent about that, because one of the things that I believe is important is being honest, and being forthright and being transparent. So I don't ever want to give anyone the impression that measuring fulfillment of purpose, or if we want to say measuring impact for training and learning, is easy to do, because it's not easy to do, right? But I believe that not easy does not mean not possible. It just means that it's not easy, right? It doesn't mean that you can't do it, because we can. Uh, I've spent the past, what, 6 or 7 years of my career measuring impact and measuring fulfillment of purpose. So you can do it, but my goodness, there are times where I am scratching my head. There are times where it feels very uncertain, very unsure, very ambiguous. There are times where I'm asking myself, Kevin, what the heck are you doing? What are you looking for? Where's the answer, right? So I experience all of that, even as the L&D detective, as I like to call myself. um, but again, it's not about the idea that it can't be done. It's about the idea that there are times where you got to roll up your sleeves. You really got to dig in there, and you got to be committed to finding what the answer is. And there are ways in which we can do that. So, yeah, it's not easy, but it's absolutely possible.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I want to sort of skip all of the interim questions and ask you, how do you do it? But I won't. I'll ask you a couple more. We'll warm up to that. I just love that you say, you sort of spin it and say, look, it is hard, but it doesn't mean that it isn't easy, but that doesn't mean that it can't be done. I love that you've got that sort of, there's potential in this. Let's just focus on it. I think that's great. I had a guest on the show, Alan Weiss. It was a big interview. He's $1 million consultant, and he talks about value all the time. He says everything that you do has to create value. And what he said in our interview is you can have a team that is happy, you can have a team that's communicating beautifully, but you still might not get the business result. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And so, like the work that we do, it's about sometimes a lot of the soft skills, about getting teams working together, about getting them communicating more effectively. But does that have an impact on business result? What are your thoughts on that? Like, is there a hard line between like the work that we do to profit, or like how do we what's that ambiguous zone that we can potentially measure?
Well, the first thing you got to do is define what a result is, because A result may vary from industry to industry, organization to organization, business to business, department to department. So you got to have what I like to call a North Star, right? And so if you're going to answer the question or look for facts, evidence, and data that shows results for training and learning, you got to know what a result is. Because for some people, a result is that we trained 500 people in Q1, right? For other people, a result is that we receive 4 out of 5 in our ratings on our learning evaluations. For some people, a result is that we delivered X number of courses in X number of time.
Mm.
So I just shared with you a few ways in which results, and I'm using air quote, a few ways in which results can be interpreted. So I'm going to be a bit more specific and narrow in on my work and what I'm focused on and what results means for me. So for me, I define fulfillment of purpose or impact, as some people like to call it, as for training and learning, as when training and learning measurably activates performance and a business goal. That is my guiding light, right? So for me, training, learning, and talent development fulfills its highest purpose when it measurably activates performance and a business goal. I like that because it's simple, it's clear, and it gives me guidance and direction. So I'm going to define, again, air quote, result as when training and learning results in activation of behavior, action, performance, and a business goal. So then we have to, be a bit more specific and define what that activation of behavior looks like, what that activation of
Mm.
performance looks like, and then ultimately what that looks like when it influences a business goal. But again, kind of to go back to your question around results, yeah, we got to know what we're looking for. We have to know how we're defining a result so that we're looking for the right thing, because quite often we're looking for impact and we don't even know what we're looking for. So there has to be some intention, some specificity, and some clarity up front to know what our targets are, and what our purpose is so that we can go back and measure fulfillment of purpose. Does that make sense? And did it answer your
Absolutely.
question? Okay.
Yeah, you did. You did very succinctly. I love it. Thank you so much. And with the result that we're
And that
measuring,
was unrehearsed, by the way.
well, yeah, yeah, and unedited. It was absolute gold. We've recorded it, so you can, anytime you need an ego boost, just play that
Oh
last
my
two,
goodness.
2 minutes back.
Okay.
Um, the question I have then is, one of the first examples you gave me was if we get 500 people through the program by Q1, as an example. And I've heard that a lot. And for me, sometimes that raises alarm bells. I'm like, oh, this looks like it's like a tick and flick exercise. Do you think, as facilitators and L&D people, should we then influence back and go, look, okay, we get that you want the quantity of people through this program, but is it our job to then sort of to man up or woman up, and take that role and influence?
It is our job to woman up and man up, at the front end before there is any conversation about training, before there is any conversation about the class, before there is any conversation about the program. I believe that we have to have what I like to call a discovery based conversation with our business partners and our stakeholders that help us reveal what business goals are, what performance requirements are to achieve those goals. Where's the performance gap? Meaning, where is it that people are today, and where is it that they need to be tomorrow in order to achieve those goals, and use their performance in a way that helps them achieve those goals. We need to be talking about different demographics for people, like where are they, like if we're a global business, are they all in one country or another country, and then what might be some differences in expectations for how people perform based on culture, right? We need to be talking about the risk, like what are the risks to people performing in a way that they need to in order to achieve a goal, and what are the risks to the business goal itself. What is it that might threaten the business from achieving the goal that it sets? So if you notice, those few things there that I just talked about had nothing to do with training, nothing to do with the class, nothing to do with the program. Up front, what we want to do is have a discovery based conversation that helps us uncover real business needs, real performance needs, so that we are then empowered to really serve as advisors and consultants to our business partners and our stakeholders to say, based on that discussion that we had, that discovery-based discussion, I don't see where training and learning is a solution is at all. Where training and learning is the solution at all. Imagine that. Or
Yeah.
we would be able to go back and say, based on what I've heard from this discovery-based conversation about business goals and performance requirements, performance expectations, and risks and threats and all that, here's what I recommend we do. So we are better informed to make a recommendation for the best type of solution that may come through training and learning than we were if we were to just have a conversation that was based on order taking, or as I like to call it, a fulfillment center relationship, where a business partner or a stakeholder comes to us and says, hey, training, I want 1 e-learning, 2 instructor leads, and a side order of PDF, right? That's a fulfillment center type engagement model and relationship. What we really want is to have the types of relationships where we can just dig a little deep and have some conversation around, again, business goals, performance requirements, and what the business is really trying to achieve, so that we can kind of take off our L&D hat, put on our performance consultant hat, and really help the business get what it needs in order to be successful.
Yeah, I really love that.
That was a long answer to your question, but
no, it was perfect. It was perfect. Thank you for providing the context. And also, like, what you did was also give us some really great clarifying questions for our discovery calls. I think that was magic. You pretty much set anyone up to have that. And that's the thing, you're so right. Like I remember working in a learning and development role for a company, and people just come in and just go, yeah, this is what I want. And it really took not some guts, but early on to sort of question it and then say, hey, I don't think this is a learning or training need. But because we are facilitators, we also probably have that bias as well, that we'll default to training or default to a workshop because it is possibly in our comfort zone. One more question around the measurement side that I wanted to get into your story, because you're a fascinating guy. If you don't pick that up already. What do you think about the post-workshop survey? Like, open question. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so the post-learning surveys go by many names: learning evaluation, learning questionnaire, smiley sheet, happy sheet. I've heard it called many things. And to be honest with you, I don't have a problem with the post-learning evaluation. That's what I'll call it. I just have a problem with the types of questions that we ask that don't inform decisions, that don't reveal any actionable insights. So I'm totally okay with surveying employees after a learning experience, after a training program. I just think we got to be a bit more deliberate and intentional with the kinds of questions that we're asking, particularly if we're asking them to give us some of their time to fill out a learning evaluation or a learning survey after a program or after a learning experience. So some of those gratuitous questions we just need to throw out, right? And when I say a gratuitous question, I mean questions like, did you like the instructor? Did you enjoy the food? Were the facilities nice, cozy, and comfortable? I'm exaggerating here, but the essence of what I'm saying is my recommendation is that we be very deliberate with the kinds of questions that we want to ask, and that those questions reveal results that are actionable versus data that we just look at and do nothing with, right? So I'm all about gathering data through learning surveys, through questionnaires that allows us to take action versus doing those surveys that almost are just kind of habit, right? A lot of times we do it because it's just what you do after a training or a learning program. But I say make the best use of our employees' time and ask questions that reveal answers that we can do something with. And in so doing, we don't have to have a lot of questions for that. I believe that brevity wins, right? So I believe that there are 3 to 5 questions that we can ask that reveal some actionable insights. And I'm going to give you a little shameless plug here, because in my L&D Detective Kit, which you can get from my website, which is free, FREE, $3, 0 cents. If you go to kevinmyates.com, you can download a copy of the L&D Detective Kit for Solving Impact Mysteries. And in that, there are a series of survey questions that I recommend that are actionable. And so I show why you want to ask those questions, and what you do with the results when you get the answers to those questions. So to kind of bring it back to your question, I don't have a problem with end of program surveys and evaluations and questionnaires. I believe that there is an incredible, exciting opportunity for us to do a better job at the questions that we're asking, and that we can use the data from those questions that we get to take action.
Okay, you can't see me if you're listening to this podcast. If you're watching YouTube, you could see my eyes light up when Kevin just shared the link to that L&D Detective kit. We will absolutely be popping that in the show notes. I'm ready to just to grab it now. If I wasn't talking to you, I'd be on there on your website right now. But I've got to be present, Kevin. No, we had a pre-chat, and I think my first question I asked you about the pivots and watersheds that brought you to do what you do now. And in that pre-chat, you said that this profession found you, and you really believe in the magic of timing, and the timing is right, things will happen. I've just, can you please share a bit more about that story and that philosophy? Because I think, particularly if you're, anyone that's trying to build their career or trying to build a business, you want success to happen right now. You want to sort of push that and accelerate the timing. So can you talk more about that statement?
Yeah, so I guess that there are examples of overnight sensations and overnight success. That wasn't my experience, right? And I'm totally okay with that. For anyone who's had overnight success and experienced that, very quickly, great, awesome. That wasn't my experience. My journey has been an unanticipated one, an unplanned one. I look at where I am in my career today, the work that I'm doing, the influence that I have in the global learning and development community, and I continue to be amazed because I didn't intentionally plan to be where I am today in my life and in my career. There are some experiences that I've had that has led me to where I am today that have been very difficult, right? There was a period of unemployment that I experienced, and that just really crushed my ego. But the interesting thing is that during that time of unemployment, I'm just kind of trying to figure out what the next step was for me, both personally and professionally. It is when my brand started to grow and started to become really strong, because it was a point at which I had to really hunker down and say, okay, Kevin, at this point, what are you going to focus on? What are you going to do? What are your goals? And what are you going to do to get to where your goals are today? And that's when I began to write, right? I mean, literally write like articles and thoughts and ideas. And I
Yeah.
started writing and posting articles on LinkedIn. And I was writing and posting articles on LinkedIn about measurement, data, and analytics for training and learning and talent development. I remember after I wrote my first article, I was thinking, wow, you just put all of this out into the world. Do you really know enough right now to be talking about what you're talking about in this article? It was kind of like that whole imposter syndrome thing. But interestingly enough, I got some really great feedback from that first article. That inspired me to write another article about measurement and analytics and data for training, learning, and talent development. That ultimately led to people discovering me who I wasn't even looking for, to say, hey, Kevin, would you come and speak to us about measurement, data, and analytics? I wasn't looking to be a speaker. That was nowhere in my plan for my life and for myself. And that extended itself beyond speaking in North America. I believe my first speaking engagement was in London. I remember that, right? And I was like, wow, Kevin, you have actually
Amazing.
been asked to speak in London, right? And so that led to more invitations to speak. That led to more invitations to write for different industry blogs, different industry magazines. So, I kind of look back on that journey, right? Again, where the growth of my brand, the growth of my work really stemmed from a moment of unemployment. And that's not the best place to be. Trust me when I tell you,
Yeah.
unemployment is not fun. But the essence of me having opportunity to kind of reinvent myself and take the time to think about what it is I really wanted to do lended itself to focusing in some areas that I didn't even know I wanted to focus on, like being a speaker, like being a writer. And the rest, as they say, is history. I'm just every day. Every day, I am humbled and I am grateful that I have somehow managed to get global attention and recognition for the work that I am doing now for measuring outcomes and measuring fulfillment of purpose. I just didn't know that people around the world would be interested in what I have to say about it. I'm still very humbled by that. And I still consider myself just to be a regular kind of guy. And there's some people who kind of, treat me like, wow, you're an L&D rock star and all that. And I'm like, no, not really. I'm just very sure about what I want to do. I'm very sure about what I am focused on. I think I'm pretty good at it. But as I said early on, there are days where I'm scratching my head. There are days where I don't know the answer. So I think the fact that I have just decided to narrowly focus in one area is where I've been able to kind of create this niche for myself. So that's my story. Well, a part of it anyway.
Yeah, well, there's so much. I mean, thank you for sharing that the narrowing your focus part as well. The other thing I want to sort of just touch on is you said that you were unemployed, that your ego took a brutal beating as you were
Oh
unemployed,
man.
yet you also got the confidence to write the article and post it. What, like when you clicked publish on that, what was going through your mind?
So when I clicked publish, my first thought was, oh my God, dude, what did you just do? You just exposed yourself.
Yeah.
No, but so I mean, so I'm exaggerating. Um, so a part of it was just like I remember it was sheer joy and excitement because it was the first time I had ever um, written written my thoughts, put them down on paper, pen to digital paper, and just put it out into the world for literally for the whole world to see, right? So I was very excited, but I was also very nervous because I'm like, well, what if someone picks apart what I had to say? What if some expert comes along and just calls me out for not knowing what I'm talking about? But again, I think I had the right amount of fear and excitement. But what I was also pleasantly surprised by is the amount of support, because there were people in my network who were just cheering me on, who read what I had to say and found value in it, and that was incredibly empowering. It just made me feel really good about the work that I had done and inspired me to do more. So yeah, the first time it was scary, but my goodness, 20 something articles later, maybe more, I am definitely past that fear and that uncertainty for pushing the send button after I write something.
Yeah, I love the power of writing. It's something that I'm doing more this year of. I was listening to a podcast with Tim Ferriss and Seinfeld, and Seinfeld was talking about how he became a better comedian. And he said, I turned from a 5-day a week writer to a 7-day a week writer. Just dedicated an hour a day just to writing. And that just changed everything in terms of it, just like up leveled the way his performance and his style as a comedian. You also, so just prior to that, were you actually specializing in measurement, or were you a generalist L&D person and then you decided I'm going to focus on the measurement side of things?
Yeah, so if I go back a few years, there was a time where, and I am a 20 plus year professional, right? So I've been in training, learning, and talent development for more than 20 years. So about 15 years in, I had the privilege of serving in many roles in L&D and working in different industries, right? So I started off as an instructional designer. Um, well, actually, I started off as a facilitator, and that led to a role in instructional design, which led to a role in curriculum management, which led to a role in learning solution design, which led to a role in learning technology. And then I started to get into leadership development, talent development, learning operations, learning administration, and again, just different industries. And so about 15 years in, I was kind of bored because I had done so much within the L&D profession that I just didn't see where there were any more challenges for me.
Mm.
And so just as I was about to leave the profession, there were a couple of people I met who really saved me from leaving learning development as an industry. The first person I met was Dr. Patty Phillips. She and her husband founded the ROI Institute, Jack Phillips, and the ROI Institute is focused on a methodology that they use to measure results and measure impact for training and learning, right? So I'm like, huh. And at that point, I knew nothing about that. I knew nothing about measurement. So I'm like, wow, this is interesting, and I'd like to learn more about this and
Mm.
maybe even focus on this. So shortly after I met Patty, I met Dick Hanshaw out of the International Society for Performance Improvement, and he was talking about the connection between learning and performance. And I had never thought about it that way. So I'm thinking, wow, you can actually measure the extent to which training and learning is influencing people's performance. So I kind of
Mm.
brought the thinking of Patty and Dick Hanshaw together and decided to focus the rest of my career on measuring the influence of training and learning on employee performance. And so that's what saved me. And that is where I have been, again, for the past, like I said, 6, 7, 8 years now. That's just where I have been narrowly focused.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What I like about what you just shared is that you paid attention to what you were really curious about and wanted to know more about, and that's when you decided to jump in. I think that's a really good sort of litmus test for anyone that wants to figure out what your niche is, where do you want to go. It's like, oh, I've done all this before, but maybe I can take a new angle and try something that I'm in sort of innately curious about. Finally, Kevin, you mentioned that you turned a certain age, and after you turned, you can share that if you like.
I'm not going to say that number out loud, but you can keep going.
Okay. And
I
once you
am a man
turned,
of a certain age, but you
you're a
keep
man
going
of
because
certain,
I'm not going to say it out loud.
it ends with a zero. That's what we'll say. And you said that when you turned that age, something changed within you, and you found it. I don't want to paraphrase what you said. Something along the lines of you felt like it was okay just to be yourself a bit more. Can you elaborate on that? And then I was asking you, well, how do I get that feeling now without turning that age?
Yeah. So, you know, I don't know if it's because you turn a certain age or if it's because you hit a certain point in life or if there's a certain life experience that causes you to make a pivot. It could be for any one of a number of reasons. For me, it was just when I had a certain birthday that I began to embrace this idea that it is totally okay to be authentic and to show up as who I am no matter where I go. Now, prior to that epiphany, I might have been one kind of way at work. I might have been another kind of way at home. I might have been another kind of way with friends, right? There was just kind of this weaving in and out and navigating who I need to be depending upon where I am and who I'm with. And again, that includes in the workplace. So I want to make sure that I focus on that piece. Um, I reached a point, again, after that certain number where I said, you know what? I'm just going to show up the same way no matter where I go and no matter who I'm with. And it's a journey that I am even continuing on today. And it is a journey of authenticity. And what I believe is it is a lot easier to live in authenticity because living in duality is just way too much work.
Mm.
So what I am so much more comfortable with today than I was, say, maybe 5 years ago, is just showing up as who I am, no matter where I go. And that includes when I am traveling in Europe, when I am traveling in North America, when I am traveling in Africa. And I am fortunate to have been to all of those continents. I'm just showing up as the person that you hear today. The dude that's talking right now is the dude that you're going to get 9 to 5, is the dude that you're going to get after 5, is the dude that you're going to get on Saturday and Sunday. It's a lot easier to live that way. Again, even in the workplace, I'm totally okay with being who I am. I'm totally okay with taking that risk of not having to turn something on and off because of what I believe perceptions may be about how I say something or how I might maneuver through something. But I'm just going through life every day trying to figure out how to just continue to be me and not have to be anything other than me. I hope that makes sense.
Um, it does. It does. It's also the question of like, what does it mean to be me? Like, what does that actually look like? And am I taking things on that that isn't part of who I am because of social constructs? We're getting quite deep now towards the end of the conversation.
Well, I'll just give, so I won't go too deep then, but I'll just say that to answer your question, that you said that begs the question, what does it mean to be me? I think that that's an ongoing journey. I don't know that you ever answer that fully, because of the nature of who we are as human beings, which means that we are dynamic and we are continuing to change. The cells in our bodies change every day. Our experiences change who we are. But there is a core being, that I believe it's important to connect with, because that's where that authenticity is. That's where you find that genuine self, that unique self. But I don't believe that there's this day where you say, well, I know who I am now. I figured it all out, so I can go forth and be me. I think that that's just an ongoing journey. And I think that that's okay. I think it's okay to continue to discover who you are.
I was thinking we need to rename this podcast, not first time facilitator, but maybe first time philosopher, because where we've gone with this. Kevin, I love the work that you do. I admire. I see, if you're not connected with Kevin or follow his content on LinkedIn, do, because like he says, he puts out articles and content that are so relevant to the work that we do. And in terms of marketing, it's really powerful to then connect what you're actually doing, what you're creating, and the results that you're delivering. That is the biggest thing that you can take to future companies, or even internally as well. So Kevin, thanks for flying that flag and for going so deep on this topic that all of us really need. It's been awesome chatting to you today.
This has been a great conversation. I'm really happy that you invited me to talk to you today.
Thanks, Kevin. Great to have an L&D rock star on the show.
Thank you.